It's so nice to be here with you today. So nice to be here with you to pray. The Lord be with you and with your spirit. Won't you please, won't you please, won't you pray for your neighbor? Welcome to a very special episode of Father Ralph's Neighborhood on this fourth Sunday of Easter, Good Shepherd Sunday. It's called Good Shepherd Sunday because every year on this Sunday we read a passage from the Gospel of St. John, different passage each year, but we read a passage from the Gospel of St. John in which Jesus describes himself as being our Good Shepherd. If you're reading along, this year's passage is from chapter 10 of St. John's Gospel. We'll be reading verses 11 to 18. Jesus said, I am the Good Shepherd, who is willing to die for the sheep. When the hired man, who is not a shepherd, does not own the sheep, sees a wolf coming, he leaves the sheep and runs away. So the wolf snatches the sheep and scatters them. The hired man runs away because he is only a hired man and does not care about the sheep. I am the Good Shepherd. As the Father knows me and I know the Father, in the same way I know my sheep and they know me. And I am willing to die for them. There are other sheep which belong to me that are not in this sheep pen. I must bring them too. They will listen to my voice, and they will become one flock with one shepherd. The Father loves me because I am willing to give up my life in order that I may receive it back again. No one takes my life away from me. I give it up of my own free will. I have the right to give it up, and I have the right to take it back. This is what my Father has commanded me to do. The Gospel of our Lord. So, it has been a really long-standing tradition that on Good Shepherd Sunday, priests get up for their homily and tell a story of how it is they decided to become priests. And this tradition has been pretty much followed by pretty much all the priests over all these years. In fact, it was Good Shepherd Sunday, as you'll see in a moment, that helped me find my way to the seminary. But I have to tell you, Cardinal Supich asked very specially that this year we would all make an extra effort to use our homily time at Mass to tell the story of how we decided to become a priest, in the hopes that the story of the pursuit of our own vocation in life would help our young people especially find their own way, find their own vocation. What is a vocation? Well, it's that one thing that God has given you the special grace and talents to do more so than anything else in your life. And finding your vocation is a true gift and treasure. The old saying is, do what you love and love what you do, and you'll never work a day in your life. And that's the gift of having a vocation. You found what you love to do, and you choose to do it for the rest of your life. It isn't all that easy because there's a lot of things that we can decide to do with our lives, right? Well, for me, that very first moment that I began thinking about the possibility of becoming a priest, believe it or not, all the way back to third grade and Sister Mary Peter Thomas. Oh, what a wonderful sister she was. What a wonderful example of our Lord's love. And she prepared us for First Holy Communion. So I have to tell you, when I made my first Holy Communion, I was so in love with the Lord thanks to her and what she taught us. Now, the day of my first Holy Communion, they made me a beautiful cake, white iced cake. And on top of the cake was this little plastic altar. It's about that big. Was But it was just like the altar at church. It even had a little door on the tabernacle that opened and closed. Well, my father, who had passed away, uh, he had his dresser. Mom made sure that his dresser was still full of all of his things, and I don't blame her. Didn't want to part with anything. Didn't want to let go. So I asked her if I could have one of Daddy's handkerchiefs. So she gave me one of Daddy's handkerchiefs. I spread it out on the top of my bedroom dresser, and I put that little plastic altar there with the rosary that I received for First Holy Communion and the little prayer book that I received for First Holy Communion. And that is where I said my prayers day after day, literally for years. I never really thought about becoming a priest because that was also when our country was locked in a space race, a race to the moon. And both the Soviet Union, at that time, the Soviet Union, Russia today, they wanted to get there before us, and we wanted to get there before them. So science was taught with great vigor in grade school, and I had some of the best science teachers. My favorite was Mrs. Rudner, and she had a great setup with a cart with a big mirror so that when she did the experiments on top of the cart, we could see exactly what she was doing in the mirror. And I just fell in love with science. And that love of science lasted all the way through to my junior year of high school. And well, I wanted to be a weatherman, a meteorologist. And not just any weatherman like on TV. I wanted to be a meteorologist with the Navy. I wanted to join the Navy and be the weatherman that was on the aircraft carrier, predicting weather for the planes as they would land and take off from the aircraft carrier. That was my dream. Well, as I went on in school, I found out that a big chunk of becoming a meteorologist was atmospheric physics. And a big chunk of atmospheric physics was calculus. I had one of the nicest, kindest calculus teachers I could have ever asked for at Bogan, Mr. Merwick, God rest his soul. And Mr. Merwick did everything he could to teach me calculus. And I just couldn't get it. I didn't get it. The only reason I even passed calculus my senior year of high school was because of Mr. Merwick's understanding and kindness. So I realized, okay, my dream is really over. I can't become a meteorologist because I'm not going to be able to do the calculus that I have to do the atmospheric physics that I have to do in order to become a meteorologist. I was lost. And we were taking our college boards, the ACT, and where do I send my scores now? What schools do I send them to? I went ahead and sent them to the same three colleges I was thinking about for meteorology: Northern Illinois, the University of Wisconsin, and Parks College in St. Louis. But knowing, even though that's where I'm sending my scores, I don't know, how could I possibly go through with it? So I went to our high school counselor, and a wonderful, wonderful lady. She was sick that day. And so I was desperate for help, and I went to talk with the counselor who was there. And he gave me a little assignment to do. He said, Ralph, I want you to go home, and I want you to make a list of 10 adults who you know personally, so you could call them up, you could talk with them, but it can't be anyone who's part of your family. Can't be, your parents, your aunts or uncles. It's got to be 10 adults outside of your own family. And take your time with the list, because I also want you to put them in order from number 1 to number 10. I think I spent 2 weeks making that list. It's a lot harder than it sounds. So I was very proud of that list when I took it back to Bogan and was ready to give it to him. And he said, I don't need to see it. That list was for you, because that list is a list of 10 mentors, 10 people who you feel comfortable going to and talking to about your life, about your future. And he said, one of the things I've learned over my years as a high school counselor is that the main reason a young person looks up to an adult in their life is because of what that adult is doing with their life. So you not only have 10 people who could act as mentors for you, but you have 10 ideas, 10 vocations, 10 possible careers for your future. And I was immediately brokenhearted, because the top 2 people on my list were priests from my parish. Father Austin Graff being the top of the list. And I was like, oh, no, there's no way I can be a priest. First of all, I was a wrestler. I enjoyed wrestling. I enjoyed making my opponent hurt. And I was just like, you know what? I don't think priests enjoy wrestling like I do. And because of my years in wrestling, I learned how to swear. I'd mastered the art of swearing. I really had. I could not only use swear words, I could put swear words in the middle of other swear words. And I said, well, there's another reason I can't be a priest, because I swear so much. Right? The last thing that really hit me was my goofy sense of humor. Priests are very holy, very pious. I said, I don't know if I can, with my goofy sense of humor, how could I possibly get up on the altar and make people laugh? And I just, all those things. So I went to the 3rd person on my list, who was a very dear friend, our neighbor across the street, George. And George was a Chicago police officer, and we just loved George and his wife. And it was just perfect. I knew him, he knew me, and hey, police, the wrestling would come in handy, right? And, I could swear all I wanted to it. It just seemed like a perfect fit. So I went across the street as I did almost every night in the nice weather to sit on the porch with George. Diane would come back and forth and bring us, something to drink. And she was just so sweet to me. And I said to myself, you know what? George will help me here. I told him everything that I just told you. And he said, Ralph, I would be very happy to help you. If you really want to become a police officer, I can give you all the information you need. We can get you going in the right direction. But, he said, before I do that, I want you to go talk to Father Graff about becoming a priest. Because, Ralph, I think you would make a wonderful priest. And I was just like, George, this is me we're talking about, right? Well, if I wanted to go through with the police thing, I had to honor George's request. And would you believe that weekend was Good Shepherd Sunday? And I was the substitute organist at St. Thomas More. So when our organist, Joe Hardy, God rest his soul, what a wonderful man and good guy Joe was. When he was sick, I would cover for him. And there were masses both in the upper church and the lower church. And you had to time it so that you could run from the upper church down to the lower church to play the opening hymn, then back to the upper church. I got to hear every priest in our parish give the homily about how and why they became priests. And who was the priest at the 12:30 Mass, the last Mass of the day, was Father Graff. So I said, okay, God, you're trying to tell me something between George's advice and me having to substitute and play the organ at all the Masses on Good Shepherd Sunday. I'll talk with Father Graff. And I saw Father Graff in the sacristy after Mass. Well, when I told him I was thinking about coming, the door between the church and the rectory kind of stuck. It was a big, heavy metal door. And Father Graff was trying to kind of push the door open backwards so that he could get into the rectory. Well, when I told him, he fell through the door. But kind of the thought I had too is like, yeah, right, Ralph, well, we met. He gave me books to read. We met and we talked. He had a good priest friend who was the counselor at Quigley South. And he said, Austin, you should let Ralph finish his senior year at Bogan, because all the reasons we told young people to go to Quigley before going into the seminary had kind of faded away. They didn't need to learn Latin anymore and all. Let him finish at Bogan, and then if he still is that interested. But they did send me on a retreat to Niles College. Niles College was the college seminary that I would be going to from Bogan. And Father Jack Wall was the recruiter for Niles at that time, and he had a retreat for specials. Specials were students who wanted to go into the seminary but hadn't gone to one of the two Quigleys, Quigley North or Quigley South. So there I was on retreat as a special and met the other specials, all of whom just wonderful, wonderful people. And the end of that retreat, I said, okay, look, that's the bargain I made with God. I said, I'll go into the seminary, and after that first year, they'll throw me out because I like to beat up on people. I like to swear a lot. I have a goofy sense of humor. They'll throw me out. And then I can go on and become a police officer. Well, went that first year, and met the rest of the class, not just us specials who were on that retreat, but the whole rest of the incoming freshman class. What wonderful guys. And, I'll be honest with you, not what I expected. Oh, yeah, there were guys that were like St. Patrick and St. Dominic and all rolled into one. But then there were guys who made me look holy by comparison. And I said, maybe, just maybe, this is the right decision. Every year I was in the seminary, I got answers to some of my questions, but I also learned to ask more questions. So every year I got some answered and I had more to ask. The end of my second year at Niles, an opportunity came up to study philosophy at the Catholic University on scholarship. And I had fallen in love with philosophy because of my philosophy teacher at Niles, Father Gus Belowskis. I said, maybe, just maybe, I should apply for this. And Father Sautis, God rest his soul, he supported the decision Ed Barth, my classmate Ed, and I had made, and went to Cardinal Cody and said, we should send these two guys to Catholic University. So we went 3 wonderful years. And what was interesting about that experience was they didn't really have a college seminary. So we got to live with the theologians, the graduate students. And it was just a wonderful experience looking at them and their diversity, their background, and just again 3 years that just grew closer and closer to our Lord, and it actually became an easy decision. But Catholic University wanted me to stay. After I got my master's degree, which was the end of that program, wanted me to stay and get my doctorate and become a professor of philosophy. And I was like, whoa, does that sound interesting, huh? Well, if it weren't for Bishop Jim Kelleher, who at that time really was pushing us, to continue in our vocation in the seminary. And, I'll tell you what, Jim Kelleher, the rector, he made it possible for me to go home. He said, Ralph, you got to ask yourself, why did you come here? Did you come here to become a professor of philosophy? Or did you come here to become a priest? So thanks to that little bit of extra encouragement from Father Kelleher, now retired Archbishop Jim Kelleher, and well, thanks to that, I was able to kind of make the switch back in my mind and my heart, and I returned home to Mundelein. And the formators at Mundelein, you talk about wonderful examples of the priesthood, and again, wonderful role models. My freshman formation team, the triumvirate of Father Cleet Kiley, Father Paul Wachtdorf, Father John Canary, and the decision became easier and easier. I still had plenty of questions. Father Kiley moved on to a very important job that Cardinal Bernardine wanted him to do, and Father Kevin Feeney became my spiritual director, and his love and his example of priesthood, well, it was a lot. In those days, you went as a seminarian, you were ordained a deacon, and you spent a year in a parish as a deacon to kind of get that final experience of priesthood. And there too, I was so lucky because I was assigned to St. James Parish in Arlington Heights, and the priest who was gracious enough to take me under his wing, Father Jerry Boland. He, again, kind of crossed all the T's, dotted all the lowercase J's, answered all the questions. Uh, Father Jerry was a rabid Cubs fan. He still is a rabid Cubs fan. And that was part of my conversion process because I had grown up to be a White Sox fan. That's a topic for another homily. But uh, this brought me to where I needed to be so that on that day, May 18th, 1985, I was ordained to the priesthood. That was just the beginning, really. Father Mike Adams, now Monsignor Mike Adams, was my first pastor, and they told us in the seminary that your first pastor was going to be the one to kind of fill in the blanks, right, and finish your formations. We talked a little bit about that last week. And Father Mike was a wonderful first pastor, and Father Ed Mikolajczyk was my mentor from the seminary. And he not only stayed with me through that first assignment, but through the first years of my priesthood. And ironically enough, I wound up becoming a teacher. They called us professors, which I loved, but a teacher at Quigley South. And he was on the faculty at Quigley South. And another good friend and mentor, Father John Klein, God rest his soul, Father Jack Daly. Becoming a priest, people talk about a calling. There's nothing magical about it. It's just the way God opens your mind and your heart to the wonderful role models, the wonderful people in your life who can help you find your way, help you find your true vocation. Now, not everyone is going to decide that vocation is the priesthood. Some of you might become police officers, right? Make up for the fact that I didn't. But the process is still the same. And that's what I really want to encourage you on this Good Shepherd Sunday, is to spend some time really thinking about your vocation in life. If you're young and still wondering what you're going to be when you grow up, this is especially important. But if you're over 39 like me, it's also still important because you're in that moment where you're taking your life and you're applying it. You're out there helping lost sheep find their way home, right? And you need to be open to that possibility that you might be someone who a young person is looking up to for mentoring, right? To help them find their way into their future. So the homework today is super easy, for me to assign. I want you to do what I did. I want you to spend some good time thinking about 10 people who you look up to and who you admire and who could mentor you. I want you, if you're a very young person, to think about how maybe that person is spending their life. What is their career? What is their vocation? And I want you not to be afraid, like I was, if the top people on that list are priests or religious, deacons, people who are spending their life in the lay apostolate, working for the church, doing good work for the church, right? Spend some time, make your list, and then seek those people out, talk to them, and be with them. And for those of you who have made your choices, remember, you could be on another young person's list. Think of the young people in your life who look up to you, who you are mentoring in so many ways, and be there for them. Be there for them when they reach out to you and they need your help and your guidance. Because we are all called to be good shepherds. We are all called to help each other find our way to the future, find our way to our Lord. So, God bless and keep you on this Good Shepherd Sunday. May the Lord lift your hearts to the possibilities of the future. And I always say, good Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, we'll be right back here again next weekend with the gospel. So I hope you'll be able to join us. God bless you. God bless those you love. And may God bless and watch over all of those who have been our friends and our mentors in life, that we may continue to live up to that high calling, that vocation that our Lord asks each of us to find, that our Lord asks each of us to follow.